take a look at the markets. Today, we're going to be talking, obviously, about the title of this video is looking at Bitcoin's hyper bull cycle. What does that mean? We've been building up this whole week talking about Bitcoin's big leap as we move from early adopters into the early majority. We've looked at whether other assets that are undergoing S-curve adoption, their change in behavior as they get to this point. We're going to be taking a look at current price action. We're going to look at current risk, price targets, and most of all, we're going to have a good time doing it. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. And right now, we are about to get into it. It has been a wild day so far. NASDAQ moving 250 handles, moving up to 200 handles. We have NVIDIA earnings after the bell today. You have to wonder what our market's moving on right now. You have to notice Bitcoin's relative strength to markets here this morning. Bitcoin's still up green on the day, 1.6%, as we're looking at U.S. indexes in the red. Bonds are not bid. There was obviously just talking a little bit about geopolitical concerns. We saw that there was an escalation, this time coming from the UK, Ukraine using UK weaponry to attack inside Russia. There's the other side of that where there is word that Putin has said that, listen, he's open to talking about a ceasefire. This is after the U.S. long-range missiles were used to attack inside Russia. He's open to talking about a ceasefire, negotiating a ceasefire with President-elect Donald Trump. The deep state must be in shambles. The last thing they want, obviously, is peace. MicroStrategy throughout all of this looks like it's getting highly extended. Let me just jump over into this beauty. I think Aldo on the daily time frame created this iteration here on MicroStrategy. Look at this. Unbelievable. The most recent trade, this one is actually forward tested live. This is not available to CTM. This is complete experimental. And right now, with this trade being 240% into profit, no one is chasing anyway. Not to say it won't go further or come crashing down. A lot of people are, it looked overextended to me, like much lower. It looked overextended to me in this last consolidation area before this massive shoot the moon vertical launch. So, does it look overextended now? Yeah, but it's look overextended for a while now. And I don't think that right now the title, the thumbnail here is risk is to the upside. And the reason being here is we've broken out of this massive consolidation on Bitcoin. We, of course, have the seasonalities into the end of the year, extraordinarily positive. October played out. November continues to play out. And December, specifically when you have October and November green, tends to be a green month. Any other time you've had September, October, November green, it has been a green month. Does it make sense here to be a hero, to get in the way and say, you know what? I feel like it's time to short Bitcoin here because Bitcoin is like at 94,000, or even if it comes into 100,000, right? We're not too far away. And we were looking at, a lot has happened in a few weeks. For whatever reason, the breakout of this consolidation, Bitcoin going from 70K to 90K, why it's not that big of a move on a percentage wise, for some reason, maybe it's this time of cycle, maybe it's all of the buzz. Y'all hear that Michael Saylor is getting ready to present to the Microsoft board next month on buying Bitcoin for their corporate treasury. I didn't know they had 78 billion. It says it right there. I was looking at how much money they hold, and yeah, $78 billion. Now, the thing is, it's not just Microsoft that has that type of money. Actually, Alphabet is sitting on about the same sum of money. They're sitting also on about $80 billion. Apple is sitting on way more. And then imagine Warren Buffett and Berkshire was forced to come in. No, this is a really, really incredible development. Now, I don't know whether or not Microsoft and its board and shareholders, I thought it was their shareholders that was going to vote on this. I don't know that they're going to take a Bitcoin position. However, if they were to, that is just next level. Absolutely next level. By the way, a lot of people are saying, well, this is Wall Street bets. I mean, these are degens. These are degens of all degens. And they're like, listen, maybe it's time to go ahead and buy MicroStrategy. You saw yesterday the CEO of Rumble was tweeting out asking if they should buy Bitcoin, and Michael Saylor responded that they should. And then the Rumble CEO. Now, I don't know how much money Rumble has on cash on hand. I mean, I imagine it's a little bit. And when we talk about retail is irrelevant this cycle, retail will be participating. And there's no question about it. As Bitcoin breaks 100,000, the psychological number, of course, you'll see some OG miners that are distributing coin into that. And they've been doing that every cycle, specifically on the breakouts to new all-time highs. That's nothing new, right? Is that going to provide some near-term resistance? Do you think it's smart to go ahead and sell into that resistance? That I'm not so sure about. There will be pullbacks. Pullbacks could come at any time. Right now, though, we are breaking out over here, and everything looks very strong and very healthy. It does remind me, by the way, those that are looking at what our price targets are, you remember we were first looking at this on the breakout itself. And we said, well, by the end of the year, like if we have a couple of good months, then we're targeting this range over here. And it's these two trend lines over here. Let me show you where they come from, just so you have that type of understanding. So you can see over here the high from March 2024. And then I just want to go down and look at this is a big level over here. This was also that flag. Remember we said on the public live streams back in June 2022, if you didn't listen and you didn't de-risk down at 53,140, if you didn't listen and de-risk down on the break of 37,000, this is your last chance. The breakdown over here of 27,000. Price then tumbled another 50%. If you didn't listen over here and you were like 17,250, bull market breakout, right? Anyway, 55,000 Bitcoin is cheap. A lot of people at the time did not understand what exactly that meant because they're very focused on what the current price action is right now. If you're trading Bitcoin, that's one thing. And if you're trading Bitcoin right now, everything suggests that you're attacking the long side, no matter what time frame you're on. So if you're trying to fade the move here, why risk continues to be to the upside, I think you need to reevaluate what you're doing and why. And most people know if they're trying to do that, they're just really trying to, there are people who every once in a while will try to short the indexes. And I'm not talking about those that are day trading, but they'll try to short something just because they want to be right and be a hero. Doesn't usually work out well. We want to be very calculated in what we do at the right time. 55,000 Bitcoin is cheap. We talked about in relation to the next cycle. We're just beginning the next cycle now. And right now, I think people are very clearly understanding what it means that 55,000 Bitcoin is cheap. Look at this major trend line we have over here. This is interesting. Let me just go ahead and highlight that a little. Do you think even if we have some type of event, if we have some type of credit event, that we're going to be trading back below 55,000? 38% drawdown. Now you can say, well, listen, that's very normal, George. 30%, 40% during bull markets, drawdowns are very, very normal. Yeah, that's been the case in the past. And there's no question that every cycle that has passed, the extent of that drawdown has diminished, including the bear market low of this one. the previous two cycles from the market top to the bear market low had an 84 and 85% drawdown. This past cycle saw a 76% drawdown. So we are seeing diminishing drawdowns. But I'm just going to revert over here to the S curve. And if you didn't see this video, it's from a couple of days ago. And it talks about the big leap of early adopters into the early majority, which is where we are today. It's when retail becomes irrelevant. Retail front ran Wall Street this time. But Wall Street is here now. And you could see, and it's very clear, the magnitude of the moves that we're seeing are larger than I anticipated in 2024. I didn't think that the U.S. would even be considering legislation to take a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I didn't realize that we would have a president who is going to be so favorable towards the space that he would buy the backed exchange. We are seeing very, very favorable moves. And if the U.S. were to go ahead and be the front runner over here, now you could say El Salvador was the first. Yeah, but they're retail. They're holding their $1 billion position. Their retail is the same thing. Now, like when the big boys come in and they're like, okay, now it's time for us to have a seat at the table. No other country would be able to allow the U.S. to be the only one, in the same way that no one could allow Microsoft to be the only large tech company that was the only one that was beginning to take a reserve position in Bitcoin. I'm trying to show you what generally, and this is just, please give me some free will over here, but this is the type of price behavior that is seen next. I personally don't believe that we're going to see anything in the magnitude of a 50% drawdown anytime soon. Now, of course, during the 2020 lockdowns, you saw Bitcoin go into a massive drawdown. I think it was 62, 63%. At that time, the majority of Bitcoin was trading on one exchange, BitMEX. And BitMEX started going into a liquidation feedback loop. The only way it stopped was them having to take BitMEX offline. I don't think something like that is going to happen again. I'm reminded of what happened in gold during the 2008 crisis. Gold had a drawdown of 30%. And then I'm reminded of what happened in 2020. Gold had a drawdown of 15%. I think Bitcoin continues to mature. I think throughout this next phase that the drawdowns, specifically during the bull market, are going to be less than we've seen. I would be very surprised if we had any large drawdown. I think the possibility needs to be talked about that between now and the next halving, I know there's going to be, look, if you're upset by this, if you don't like it, I'm here to entertain conversation and comment in the live. We'll talk about it. But more importantly, leave a comment. Leave a comment that I could really sit with and then enter into conversation. I think that the possibility that between now and the next halving, there's not a 50% drawdown on Bitcoin is something that should be entertained. Now, when we talk about risk to the upside, I'm trying to talk about what's happening before us right now in near-term price action. However, that also means for the next cycle. How many people are waiting for that pullback in order to take a position? And as Bitcoin moves up another 30%, and then they're waiting for that pullback, and then Bitcoin moves up another 15%, all of a sudden, even if you had a 50% pullback, you're just getting back to the price we were at today. You have to wonder when we talk about 55,000 Bitcoin is cheap, what that looks like into the next cycle, 4 or 5 years from now. So that's something to consider, and very strongly. We've seen a lot of things different. We've seen a lot of things similar. One thing that was different is Bitcoin made a new all-time high prior to the halving, the first time ever. The extent of the drawdown was significantly less than in the past two cycles. Is it possible that going into next cycle, we saw price making new all-time highs before the cycle again? Is it possible that the drawdown is less than, and look, anything could happen. It's the markets. Could we enter into some type of massive deflationary shock like China's going through right now? It's possible. It seems to me that China is a lot closer to having actually print themselves out of this. Do you think that FOMO is when a tech company like Microsoft, for example, who they're talking about it, so let's talk about them, or multiple tech companies start coming into the market? Do you think FOMO is when you see the US, if they were to, I don't know that they're going to take an actual strategic reserve position, but if they were to take 200,000 Bitcoin off the market over the next 5 years, do you think we're going to see a 50% drawdown throughout the bear market if they were doing that? If the United States was doing that, and then you saw other G7 nations or all other G7 nations having to act in kind, do you think we're going to see a 50% drawdown? Do you think that's FOMO, or do you think the FOMO begins when actually you need to see nations printing fiat in order to buy Bitcoin? That's when the real FOMO begins. I think that last cycle, the suppression of the peak of last cycle, I think it has a lot of people shell shocked about what could happen going forward. I think that it's, now people seeing what the 4-year cycle is and how similar it played out again, I think that has people now a little bit too tied in to the outcome to expect going further. Are they able to understand what happens next on an S-curve? All questions that I'm just presenting. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what happens, but things that are not being talked about enough, I want to bring into the conversation so that we could at least have that awareness and navigate as things continue going forward. If you haven't seen this slide, this is just something that we've talked about in relation to the US dollar. Normally, when Bitcoin goes boom, you're seeing the US dollar selling off. So for example, you can see over here, what's going on? The US dollar selling off in this period. This is where Bitcoin goes up, right? Right now, the US dollar is consolidating, just like it did in this last green slide over here. Consolidating. Right now, it's consolidating. Bitcoin was rising. Bitcoin is rising, but it's not until the US dollar actually starts to decelerate to the downside does Bitcoin really begin to fly. A lot of people are not understanding because you see these big sharp moves up in the red. When the dollar really appreciates strongly, you see Bitcoin in those bear markets. So people can't understand how the US dollar could be rising in the consolidation, even in this past one, making new all-time highs, or taking out the high from the previous year, I should say. And yes, the Bitcoin is supposed to be rising during this particular time of cycle. Let's take a look at our positionings here as BTC 107 has entered on the long side. Ethereum remains out on the sideline. And then we're seeing Cardano here continuing to build into profit, 122%. And Solana is out on the sidelines. Here's the difference between BTC 108 and BTC 107. Quicker, earlier entry playing out well over here. I think we also have CTM. This is buy side only. So this is the 8-hour buy side only, taking that same entry, that earlier entry. The reason I bring it up is because we've just, as everyone knows, let me just find the right talking point. We're trading above the 0.786 retracement fib, and we've been for a while. We consolidated for that 6-7 months, have broken out to the upside, and everything suggests bullish on Bitcoin. We know that BTC on the buy side, BTC 101 outperforms. I know that we track often and always BTC 107. It's the preferred template. Look, these are CTM problems. It's hard making these assessments. Let me give you an example. This is coming back from 2014. All right. Do you guys want to look at something a little bit closer? Let's do since the last, this is buy side only since the top of the last or the 2017 bull market. So you're looking at 9,000 with a 12% drawdown. BTC 107, buy side only, right? So you can see the massive outperformance from 2014. That's because we're also using the short side. Buy side only, you could see that the BTC 101 is outperforming. They're both on the 8-hour time frame. It outperforms in overall performance. What about since 2020? That's the marker that we just looked at. It was a 9,000% return. Oh, you should hold Bitcoin. Never look at the massive outperformance. So, and then BTC 108 outperforms. Let's take a look. So now we have over here, let's do buy side only from 2014. So even BTC 101 is outperforming on a drawdown and return basis. And then since 2020, let's take a look. And it's tremendously outperforming over here, BTC 101. So right now, community, I think that as we expect, or I expect, until we have some type of technical breakdown, and if we have a technical breakdown at any point in time, I know that everyone watching, well, not everyone, I shouldn't say that. Obviously, CTM will love it. But if we had a technical breakdown at any point in time, and we said, even though we thought different things were happening, but here's what's happening now. Like if we traded below the 0.786 retracement fib, below 50K, something is very wrong. Very wrong. Now, there are others. We're gonna wait for them to develop. We don't need to be looking at them today. But up until then, I think that everyone focusing on BTC 101, it makes the most sense. Any type of feedback from the community on that, I would love to see that. I don't know that the US dollar is overappreciated in any way, shape, or form. One of the things you might say is that, well, the markets were expecting X amount of cuts to come in and very rapidly. Jerome Powell has recently adjusted that view and said, we're in no really rush to go ahead and cut. So, look, maybe at some point in the first quarter of 2025, maybe the US dollar will peak. Right now, people are looking at the potential effects of tariffs being used. Markets tend to overreact and overshoot. Maybe that's what we're seeing right now as it came. So let me pull up a chart of the US dollar. And it's very important here because we have 2 points to talk about. So if I may, fine. So this is as Powell cut 50 basis points, and a lot of people thought the dollar was going to sell off, but we follow price and we follow the technicals, and we went long here on the dollar. And then after the election, on the outcome of the election, the dollar made another huge move. So I would say the two are playing both a role. It's both Fed policy here, expectations going forward, and it is the election of Trump and his use of tariffs, I think, likely playing a role. Now, I don't know where it peaks, right? There's a lot of room to the upside for sure of where this could peak. But we're watching for the first opportunity of a very sharp technical breakdown, and that would be over here. So we don't put expectations on the market. We follow what's happening and we stay on the right side. So Ace, my other question is, because I never looked at it, and it's a call to the community. What happens if we take buy side 101, BTC 101, the 8-hour, and combine that with the short side of BTC 107? The short side of BTC 107 is tremendous. And I'm curious, so I have to know. I'm going to take the template and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to input the BTC 107 settings into it and get an idea if there's any conflict of the buy side and the short side. But I also wonder, well, that's the first thing to do. I want to see what that looks like. I'm very curious what let me just show you. You ready? We're looking at here since 2018, a 9,000% return with a 12 and a half. BTC 107 in that same period has a 1,700% return. If you add in the short side during that period, all of a sudden the return is doubled. So if you're able to do the same thing on BTC 101 and take a 9,000% return and trade BTC 107 on the short side, which you could see it probably has a 100% return. No, that's not how the compounding works. Well, 116% return. That right there might be something that was easy fruit that we were just missing. So it's worth considering. It's worth talking about and seeing if we were able to take a look at it. Sorry, I got caught up in a comment. I mean, so I'm going to entertain this. So you're saying that what we're seeing right now is not because of institutional FOMO. Yeah, the institutions haven't begun FOMOing yet. We're talking about, well, some developments are really shaping. We could see Microsoft begin taking a Bitcoin position and adding it to their corporate treasury. They've seen Tesla take a small position that's now worth $1 billion. They've seen MicroStrategy take a large position, and they see what it's completely feasible that in X amount of years, MicroStrategy could be a bigger company than Microsoft. Do you think that Microsoft is ready for that to happen? No. Are they FOMOing? No. They're making calculated decisions. Now, if MicroStrategy takes a position and then you see, wait a second, then Alphabet says we can't get left behind. We need to take a position. And then Apple says it, and then Oracle says it, and then Meta says it. That's FOMO. Now, that's not limited to what's taking place on tech companies, or potentially. It could take place between, wait, the US is getting ready to take a strategic reserve, and then you see some type of other Middle Eastern country take a position. And then if the US actually does it, you begin to see all G7 nations take it. And then you see states take it. And then Tennessee goes, wait a second, we should take a Bitcoin position. And then there's 50 states, but there's 25 other that are strongly into sound money and red. And then you see Utah do it. And then you see Wyoming do it. And that begins further and further FOMO. And then we talked about the real FOMO begins once central banks begin printing fiat in order to buy Bitcoin. No, none of that's happening now. The stage is set. So I guess different people have different thoughts at different times. Sailor over here, by the way, kind of responds to people who think that MicroStrategy's premium might be too high. Let me include that here in the comments today if you want to go ahead and listen to that. Nope. I mean, there's nothing crazy about any of these companies taking a big position. I guess the FOMO begins when Peter Thiel, who gave up on Bitcoin, is forced back into seeing it. So Blacksmith, I mean, that's great for a lot of people who look, the way that we look at it, it's like knowing when to be in the market, when to be out, and on what side is priceless. We don't have to consider funding rates. We don't have to consider anything. We spent all of our time developing a mechanical edge that helps us know when to be in the market and when out, managing risk around it. That's it. So there are people who, it's very discretionary, right? At the time of the breakout, funding rates were very low. And then, did you need funding rates to know that price was breaking out? No, I don't think so. All you needed was a chart with some lines on it. And then we did this all in real time. So we had the breakout, the retest of the lower line, breakout again, a retest of the upper line. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I don't know the edge in that personally. And I think that the markets and trading is one of the most difficult and complicated things in the world. What we do is we take something that is extraordinarily difficult and we make it as easy as possible, which means going ahead and drowning out a lot of the noise. So just ahead of the NVIDIA, let's take a look at what's going on from a couple of different angles over here. We know that we're on the sidelines, TQQQ. NVIDIA, we are out of the market now, ahead of the earnings. The implied volatility is 12%. Feels pretty good just being on the sidelines as we roar in the bliss on NVIDIA on a P&L standard out on the sidelines. FNGU is still holding open position, currently 14% in profit, and Tesla is holding open position 17% in profit. Let's take a look. I mean, guys, crypto's great. We love crypto. Bitcoin cold storage, a hedge against the system, essential piece, in my opinion, of your overall portfolio. But we make the type of returns that we make on crypto on stocks. Think about it. So let's take a look at what's going on with NVIDIA. Let's take a look and just go a little free ball. So this looks accelerated, right? Look at that. We have a liquidity grab that occurred over here. We had a breakdown 2 days ahead of the earnings. Price has been able to regain the trend line and so far off the low today, retest it. Wow. Listen, it's the implied volatility. The way that options are pricing on NVIDIA as of this morning was for a 12% move after earnings. That is absolutely massive. It doesn't matter if NVIDIA beats and even guides higher. All that matters is the market reaction to it. Markets sometimes take an excuse to sell off. If we close below here tomorrow, major breakdown. What I would do is this though. And what I'm going to do is this I'm going to take this line and I'm going to extend it off of that one touch. That would be a massive breakdown for NVIDIA, a close below that lower line. Let's go ahead. We'll check back on this on in the week ahead. Let's make that red. Now, that's assuming that we break down, or that's watching our downside. 12% implied volatility doesn't imply which way it moves. The move could be either which way, 12%, right? So you could see 12% tomorrow this way, or you could see 12% move tomorrow this way. 160 above 160. Phenomenal. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know. I have seen in the past upon earnings, you could see that. Let me just put up earnings here on this chart, and you could see the moves that occur. So this was 8% implied volatility, 6% move, or maybe this one was 8%. Another 6.5% move. You know, is it common more than to see these big moves occur on NVIDIA after the earnings? This one, look at these big moves. So that's where we're kind of holding into today. And that's a big deal for the markets. Now, doesn't seem to be affecting Bitcoin right now. And again, the relative strength of Bitcoin is absolutely impressive today compared to the rest of the market. Bitcoin right now is doing Bitcoin things. It's hard to sometimes like this is why we all do our work in a closed environment. So anytime someone starts off with all due respect, I don't know how to take that. But like the only way, and this is not a live template. This is an experimental template. And big hat tip to Aldo. We just forward test this. This is the only way that we look at MicroStrategy. We don't care. Like we don't care if like what the fundamentals are of MicroStrategy. We only care about which way price is kicking. And look, I don't think many people, when price was at 139, expected that we'd be holding an open trade 242% into profit. With all due respect, this is the only way that we look at MicroStrategy, and at no point were any type of fundamentals discussed. So there you go. Price is price. And that is all we care about. And then look, I haven't transferred over to V3. That's going to be like the focus of the rest of this week's live streams is going ahead up, begin forward testing all of our top candidates on V3 on a daily basis so that we get comfortable like that. And then like I'll start with like our top Bitcoin, our top Ethereum, and then we'll take a look at Solana, continue working on that, and there we go. All right, everyone. Zach, lots of love. If anyone here enjoyed being here today, go ahead and smash the like button if you haven't already. And it's a good day to have a good day. No question about that. I don't think so, Andrew. If you missed the beginning of this presentation, please go ahead and watch it. I don't think that monetary policy is going to align, like really align, like return to outright QE in the earliest at some point in late 2025, maybe in 2026. When monetary policy aligns, that is when you are going to see the bull of all bills running. It's not even getting warmed up right here. This is not what this is it. So I don't that's what I was trying to put out over there. It's interesting. That's what I was trying to prepare people for, is listen to these considerations that I'm putting out there and offering, because we just entered the early majority stage of the S curve. Things change going forward from here. All right. Everyone, thanks for the conversation. Have a beautiful day. God bless you. And I'll see you all back on the inside.